Everyone, welcome to the 2015 Annual Fall Address. We are here to celebrate the success of the university over the past year and to get a first glance at President Leath's strategic mission moving forward. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Dan Breitbarth. I'm the student body president here, and I also have the distinct pleasure to introduce President Leath at this evening. Many of you already know that Dr. Leath has plenty of additional talents past bringing high-quality students to Iowa State. Talents including bow hunting, aviation, and plant pathology, the field of study in which he received his PhD. And so instead of discussing how Dr. Leath made his arrival here in Ames, I want to start the night out with some much-deserved recognition. I was interning in our nation's capital over the summer, and I had an opportunity to grab lunch with Dr. Leath. During this time, we had an opportunity to discuss our plans for the future and for the coming year. He had been visiting D.C. To discuss university business with some of the local congressmen and women. But this year, he was also featured as the keynote speaker of the Charles Valentine Riley Memorial Lecture at the American Association for the Advancement of Science headquarters in Washington. And folks, with an event title like that, you know it's got to be a significant accomplishment. But in all seriousness, this is a significant accomplishment. This event is held in order to promote agriculture nationwide, and some of the previous speakers include a former U.S. Secretary of Agriculture and a ranking member within the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So he's truly among an elite class of individuals. This is just one great example of how President Leath has continued to put Iowa State in the spotlight during his time here. His commitment to this school's success on all fronts will serve as a foundation for the progression of our university towards the future. And as Allstate Insurance would put it, we are in good hands. And I cannot wait to see how he plans to continue the high-quality educational experience offered at this school. I want to remind you that at the end of his remarks, there will be a question and A section, and there will be microphones in the front for anyone that wants to ask, so please do approach the microphones. So, without further ado, here he is, President Stephen Leath.
Well, thank you to Dan. Appreciate that introduction. Dan is a great representative of Iowa State. Those of you that saw him in action yesterday at the Board of Regents meeting, he's very professional and polished, and the students made a great choice when they got you, Dan. You served them well. So I want to thank everyone for being here this evening, whether you're here tonight in this room or virtually somewhere. Our engineering staff is streaming this to the folks that aren't here, and that's really exciting. Appreciate Janet being here tonight with us also. I thought it'd be a nice change to have this address at night. In the past, it's been first thing Friday morning, so we thought we'd try an evening time slot and see how that worked out, and it looks like it's working out well. So as I start, I want to say I'm really excited about this year. I'm optimistic. I'm proud to be president of Iowa State. And there are a lot of good things happening here, and I hope everybody feels the exact same way. We're coming off what I consider to be another exceptional year, and there are many accomplishments. And just to get the talk started, I want to just talk about 3 or 4 very briefly, just to set the tone. And I'll start by saying we had a member of our faculty elected to the National Academy of Sciences, tremendous accomplishment for Dr. Catherine Kling. Team Prism, our ISU Prism car, I talk about that every year, but this year I can talk about it another way. It made history with its first solar car win at the national competition. So we've always done well, but it's really neat to see us win. Ryman Gardens celebrated its 20th anniversary this year. The University Museum celebrate their 40th anniversary later this month. Lynette is here, and I can tell you that the museum and the gardens look beautiful right now. In terms of sports, Kyvan Gadsden made us proud, pinning his way to a national championship in wrestling. Ed Kimboy won both the 800 meters national titles in indoor track and outdoor track, a rare accomplishment indeed. So many, many things like that could be discussed tonight, but I wanted to get everybody feeling good about Iowa State and the many things that go on here in many different areas. As we look at Iowa State, the demand for an Iowa State degree is as high as it's ever been. Some could argue higher than it's ever been, and we've experienced our 7th consecutive year of record enrollment. You saw the count yesterday, 36,001. Some people said maybe we should give a prize for that one. But I actually discussed this with the regents, and there was some question about the 36,001, who is the one? And what I said was, as fun as it was, I said, every single student here could be the one. And I think the reason we're different from the other schools in Iowa and many schools around the state is because any single student could be considered the one by any given faculty or staff member. We really care about individual student success. And I think it resonated with the regents, and they saw the numbers we've put up over the last few years. There's a reason students are coming here. And we're going to talk about some of the other reasons. But I think that may be the most important reason. And we're going to talk a little bit, too, about the guy who gets most of the credit for that in a little while. Most of our growth, agriculture, engineering, and business, shouldn't surprise you. And when you think about it, we're the only university in the state to experience this kind of demand-driven growth, especially at this extent. So it does say a lot about this university and what we're doing here. It begs two questions that I often get. Why is an Iowa State degree in such high demand? And how is this tremendous growth affecting the university? Well, I'd start by saying our recruiting group, our admissions group, our marketing folks do an outstanding job of promoting the Iowa State brand, the value, and the overall experience at Iowa State. Our alumni do a great job, and as Jeff will be proud to tell you, there's now over 100,000 Iowa State alumni living in Iowa. They all have a story to tell, and they're telling their stories, which does a tremendous job of bringing students to our doors. But what we're really seeing is that our reputation is extremely strong right now. Students are drawn to Iowa State because of our commitment to our land-grant mission, first-rate programs, in areas that really align with and drive our economy. It is hugely important to talk about our faculty and staff. When you get right down to it, all of this in one way, shape, or form, whether it's alumni or other things, they trace their experience back to the faculty and staff, and that's one of the reasons students come here. We have a supportive culture, we have good facilities that are getting better, and I like to think we have a very, very beautiful campus. And in Iowa State, education has a proven track record of success. The one thing I just cannot tell enough people, for a school the size we are, to place 95% of our graduates across all majors after they graduate is really a tremendous accomplishment. And it's not just students that are excited about this place, it's faculty and staff. Iowa State was again recognized by Forbes as one of the top 25 best universities to work for. And I'd say that reputation also helps us bring other great employees here. I'd like to just take a minute and welcome some key new employees. Beth McNeil, who is our new Dean of the University Library. I want everybody to welcome Beth. Marlene Straight, who is our new Director in the School of Education. Ed Lyon, who is the new Executive Director of Ryman Gardens, came on board this year. And Steve Prohm, the new Cyclone men's basketball coach. Excited to have them and many faculty, over 125 new faculty with us now at Iowa State. So welcome to everyone. I'd also like to recognize Julie Neuter. I know she's here tonight, who has just been promoted to Vice President of University Human Resources. So Julie, wherever you are, congratulations. Switching gears to the opposite end of the spectrum, and before I go into maybe the main part of my address and priorities, I want to acknowledge three outstanding longtime university employees who are now going to be leaving Iowa State. So it's with mixed feelings I mentioned that yesterday at the Board of Regents meeting, I made a public announcement that Senior Vice President of Student Affairs, Tom Hill, University Counsel, Paul Tanaka, and then our endowed Dean of the College of Human Sciences, Pamela White, will all be retiring. So I'd like to take just a moment and tell you an item or two about each of these three critically important individuals. For nearly 20 years, Tom has been the architect and the champion of the Iowa State brand and the student experience. When I talk about kids wanting to be at Iowa State, for the experience, the culture, the feel, that's Tom. He may be one of the most recognizable faces on campus. With the exception of me, I think more people know Tom Hill on campus than anybody. He's a mentor for the students, an advisor, an advocate, and a friend. So Tom will be leaving at the end of the year to be with his family in Dallas. I'm excited for Tom. I'm selfishly disappointed in a way. But I did manage to talk Tom into serving for a while as my senior policy advisor on student experience issues. If you look, the Student Experience Council had a set of recommendations for us, and we've implemented some of them. Tom is going to thoughtfully look at where that process was left, what are the best practices at Iowa State in the past, how do we need to adjust for the large enrollment in the future, and look at best practice at other schools and give me a plan that really sets us again on that course to make sure this brand he worked so hard to develop stays in place. Tom's also going to serve as our representative on the NCAA Infractions Committee still, too. So, Tom, it would be good to still have you around, even if it's not around every day. Paul Tanaka has been with the university over 20 years. During that time, he has provided exceptional legal counsel, not just to me, but presidents before me. He's faced some very challenging situations. He faced them all with wisdom and integrity. And it's because of Paul's expertise many institutions have looked to Iowa State for best practices, something he should be very proud of. And he has been instrumental in maintaining our reputation as a university that demands excellence and has extremely high ethics. Paul plans to retire at the end of the spring semester, and the group should know, because not everybody deals with general counsel like I do, that I always count on Paul for sound, thoughtful advice. He's been tremendous. Pam White's been a proud Iowa Stater for 40 years. I'm looking at her right now. She's been Dean of the College of Human Sciences for 7 years, and Pam has had tremendous success in increasing enrollment, fundraising in her college, advancing the academic and research missions and programs. Her positive demeanor, get-it-done attitude, I've told people when they want to be a dean, Pam should be a role model for you. She's going to retire in July, so we'll miss you, Pam. I'm personally very happy for Pam, Tom, and Paul. I'm a little selfishly, like I say, upset that I'm going to lose these people. They leave strong legacies here at Iowa State. There's no doubt we'll be challenged to find people with their talent and dedication and skill set. But that's the most important thing we do, is hire good people and keep good people. And Iowa State's had a great history of bringing people like them here and keeping them here. So we'll immediately start searches for these positions. They'll come in a cycle. I guess I should say the first search will start immediately, and then we'll cycle these through. And there'll be announcements on all of those starting next week. Some of you may wonder why these people have stayed at the university so long. I don't, because Iowa State is really a world-class institution. Tonight I'm going to try and reinforce some of the priorities I've had and that have led us to the point, that led us up to this point, and then some of the new initiatives to support our demand-driven growth and continue to raise the profile of this university. I also want to leave plenty of time for questions. Dan mentioned that earlier. I really like getting questions. I want to know what your concerns are, what your ideas are. And so we'll try and leave plenty of time for that. And now as I start in the main portion of my remarks, I want to address affordability, accessibility, and quality, the three things we talk so much about at public universities. First priority will still be fulfilling our land-grant mission to make a first-class education accessible and affordable. I'm very proud, I hope everyone here is, that we serve more Iowa students than any institution in the world. We also understand and appreciate the importance of our non-resident students. They bring diversity and vibrancy to our campus, and it comes from every state and now 110 countries. We're striving to remain as affordable as possible. You've probably heard me say over the last year, though, that access and affordability without quality is no bargain. It's not a good value to our students. So we are very accessible. We are very affordable. Of the 11 universities in our peer group, we have the lowest tuition and fees. We froze tuition for 3 straight semesters. But we have to have quality. And even our students, Hillary before Dan and Dan now, have worked hard with the student body to get a read on the student body. The students are supportive, as is administration, for a moderate tuition increase to maintain quality and deal with the growth issues that we have here at Iowa State. So we did propose a $100 a student tuition increase for our resident students. The Board of Regents passed it yesterday, and I assured the students we'd use it wisely and we'd put it towards issues that will make the growth more manageable from a student perspective. So at the same time, we need to raise other monies. And we do understand that no matter how moderate, these tuition increases can be burdensome. So that reason, we're working aggressively to raise other sources of money. 3 years ago, I launched the Moving Students Forward campaign with the goal of raising $150 million more in scholarships over a 5-year period for our students. Tonight, I'm extremely pleased to report that in just 3 years, we've already raised $145 million. That is tremendous. We've seen the results. Last year, 5,800 students received privately funded scholarships on this campus. Our students are taking out fewer loans. They're graduating with less debt. The average debt load, for example, of an Iowa State student dropped 5% over the last 3 years, and then more than 10% in the last 9 years. But we need to do better, and we need to continue this trend of lowering debt and finding more scholarships. So in talking with Larissa, we've decided to announce tonight that we'll expand the goal of this campaign to $200 million in new scholarship money for the students. And I believe we can do that. If you look at our overall fundraising on campus, it is skyrocketing. Last year, we raised $167 million in private monies. That's nearly $50 million over our previous record, which was the year before. So if you think of it in that perspective, it's a huge trajectory upwards. This is exciting because we're seeing tangible impacts now across campus of these new gifts coming in. I want that impact to grow and continue to grow. And I want to tell you how it enables these priorities we have on campus. So I'll talk about a priority now that's truly enabled by this. And to put it in perspective, this is not a one-year fundraising thing. I think you know that, but let me just back up for a minute before I talk about the priorities and say, this year we'll be finalizing plans for a new university-wide capital campaign. Larissa Holtmeyer-Jones is our new president of the Iowa State Foundation. She's here tonight. She has hit the ground running. She has a history with the foundation. She is doing a fantastic job to keep the strong fundraising efforts we had going and to grow them to the levels we all want. So as much as we have high expectations for the fundraising and the actual dollars we plan to raise, what we really are looking at is how does this enable to do the things that we feel are important on this campus. Clearly, student scholarships and lowering debt are one of those areas. But the other ways we want to use these money relate back to the faculty. We need to find ways to enhance our faculty's ability to do research, scholarly work, be successful, and want to stay at Iowa State. And we can do this through expanding our research enterprise or many other ways, but it all traces back to, if it's not for the students and scholarships, it needs to go to enhance our faculty's ability to do what they do well. And I think we're doing that. For example, we actually have 2 new National Academy members this year. Ronald Leonard, who is a member of the National Academy of Engineering, was recently hired in the Agricultural and Biosystems Engineering program. And you heard me mention earlier Kathy Kling, a distinguished professor of agriculture and life sciences and economics and director of our Center for Agriculture and Rural Development, was promoted to National Academy from within the Iowa State faculty ranks. She made Iowa State history when she was elected. We hadn't had someone elected in a number of years, but she is the first woman faculty member to ever become a member of the Academy here at Iowa State. So we're excited about this. And as a result, I've named Dr. Kling a presidential chair in environmental economics. But if we don't continue to raise private funds to support our faculty so they can achieve greatness like this, we're not doing our job. So Larissa and I, her entire team, the deans, all of us be working together to move the university forward in ways that make a huge difference. I want to position more and more of our faculty to get to the level and have the recognition they deserve and as a result be the go-to experts when state and federal agencies, companies, organizations call, be the kind of people that are immediately thought of when people think about who should be in our academies, and that their innovative ideas, their expert advice are sought after worldwide. I think our faculty should be go-to experts because they're the ones doing this exceptional work here. And you can see that this year in our research dollars. The faculty generated $425 million in external funding this year, an extremely impressive amount, a record amount. And more than half of that directly supported research on this campus. Not only does it allow us to change society in a beneficial way, it's a tremendous impact on the economy of Iowa to have those many funds come into this state. The newly created Grants Hub contributed greatly to this success by assisting 130 faculty and submitting more than $60 million in proposals in the first 7 months of the Grants Hub activation. I want to acknowledge Vice President of Research, Sarah Nusser. This was her idea, it was her effort, and it's proven to be hugely successful. And just one specific example, with the help of the Grants Hub, a team led by Alicia Karakiri secured a 5-year, $19 million grant from the National Institute of Standards and Technology to establish a first-of-its-kind center. The Center is for Statistics and Forensic Excellence here at Iowa State. Our faculty are also continuing to lead the way in advancing the bioeconomy. More proof of that came last week when the National Science Foundation announced it was adding 3 years and more than $8.5 million to the grant that supports our NSF Center, Engineering Center in Biorenewable Chemicals. This is a center led by Brent Shanks. Many of you know Brent on campus. We also opened a new biopolymer pilot plant at the BioCentury Research Farm. Megan, can I get something to drink? Is there any water? Thanks. I'm very pleased with the progress, too, of our presidential initiative for interdisciplinary research, which has resulted in just its short time, less than 3 years, in $257 million in grant applications and $24 million in new funding to date. Again, a great credit to the faculty. This seed money in this program has proved to be a good investment. 2 presidential interdisciplinary initiatives, one focused on nano-vaccines and the other on crop bioengineering, are now ready to develop into multidisciplinary centers. Thank you. In a similar research vein, I want to comment on a new initiative, a big data initiative. We hired a number of faculty to deal with big data last year. And as we look to expand our research enterprise, I want to truly strengthen Iowa State's position as a pioneer in this field of big data, or data-driven science, but most people now know it as big data. I'm pleased to announce tonight that we are officially expanding the presidential initiative for interdisciplinary research that I just mentioned to provide additional seed funding for projects in data-driven science. The data science impacts every field, from business to the hard sciences to the social sciences. The ability to capture massive amounts of data and harness the information, distill it down to identify industry needs, improve processes, and develop new technologies, among other things, has transformative potential in so many disciplines. We have the fundamental sciences, the fundamental expertise, great faculty in these areas already. The provost hired 12 more in recent years. So I feel like this is an area where we can excel and contribute greatly to our economy and the needs of this country and the world. This new research initiative, combined with our new online master's program in business analytics, presents tremendous opportunities to become a global leader in big data here at Iowa State. I truly appreciate the faculty and staff here at Iowa State, and I hope you can see that. And I want to talk about some specific things related to the faculty and staff now. And they are the focus of this institution. I've said it before, I'll say it again tonight. I think of a university kind of like a church. It's not about the building. In a church, it's about the congregation. At the university, it's about the faculty and the staff, but especially the faculty. And we wouldn't be where we are. The students wouldn't be knocking at the doors at 36,000 at a time if it wasn't for our outstanding faculty and staff. They truly are the heart of the institution. And from my perspective, I and the senior leadership need to do everything we can to attract and retain these people. We want the best people here. And I think we've been able to acknowledge their work with salary increases over the last 4 years. But that being said, I was particularly disappointed that we couldn't provide higher increases this year. That was a goal of mine, and it was to some extent an expectation of mine. We had a very, very challenging legislative session this year. I can guarantee you that Joe Murphy and I and others worked tirelessly, but we didn't get the result we wanted. We did not get to implement performance-based funding. Our funding in general went up. I'm pleased about that, but it didn't go up to the numbers I think we needed or that we justified. The legislature did recognize the differences with the universities and gave us $1.2 million in recurring monies. And I want to thank every one of you that I had asked to help with this effort. Those of you that made personal lobbying efforts, whether it was through phone calls, personal emails, face-to-face visit with legislators, I thank you for that, and we're going to need it again this year. The efforts weren't in vain. We did get an increase. We did have more money than the year before, our 4th straight year of increase. And I think we made huge inroads with the governor and the legislature about what Iowa State is about, the fact that we have 21,000 Iowa students on this campus, and we've teed up this agenda for this legislative session very, very well. I just wish it wasn't going to take another effort. Number one priority this year is to get additional monies for faculty and staff salaries from my perspective. We've got to come through on that effort. To that end, we have a much larger appropriation request in recurring dollars than we've had in a while for FY17. We've gone through the Board of Regents, got their blessing, and we're going to ask for $8.2 million in recurring monies in addition to what we get to move the university forward. This compares to smaller requests from our sister universities, but I think we have a strong, strong case here at Iowa State for that larger request. In making the case to the legislature, we will emphasize the need for additional funding to support strategic new faculty hires. I'm making a priority this year to lower our student faculty ratio. We need to do something to adjust the faculty workload, and one way we can do that is with more faculty. Over the past 15 years, while enrollment increased 35 to 40% in different units, our student to faculty ratio jumped more than 46%, from 13 to 1 to 19 to 1. Now, we worked really hard on that. I want to have a goal closer to 16 to 1. Over the past 3 years, we've hired 365 new tenured or tenure-eligible faculty. The provosts and the deans worked hard and hired 120 plus this year. But with attrition, and especially our unprecedented growth, we've actually not gained on that ratio at all. That kind of stuns me to think we could hire 365 people in 3 years and not move that needle. But it does speak to the tremendous demand for an Iowa State education and the student numbers. We need additional resources. I think that's imperative. We're building a strong case of that. If we're going to have a personalized, student-focused educational experience with this many students, we need more resources. We'll put that money towards additional advising support, class offerings, graduate student recruitment, expanding IT infrastructure, and again, the number one priority of mine around that is to do a better job with compensation here. I'd like to switch to another area that you know is dear to my heart. That's expanding our capacity, especially as it relates to the economic impact Iowa State University can have on this state. Last year, we successfully secured $40 million in state funding for a new Student Innovation Center on top of the other monies I told you about. We coupled this with a $20 million private gift, and we're challenging Larissa and her team to help us raise another $20 million to build this $80 million building. The important point here, there are two important points here. One is this is the second year in a row that Iowa State has been awarded funding for a new campus facility. This is nearly unprecedented. None of the other Regents universities got any funds for a new building this year. So the legislature is listening in many ways. It showed us with this $20 million gift that we can get large gifts for academic buildings. This is the largest gift we've gotten for an academic building. And then perhaps most importantly for Dan and all his colleagues, this will bring 165,000 square foot of space online for students' interdisciplinary collaboration on large-scale, hands-on projects. The facilities we have for these projects right now at Iowa State are too limited in space and quality. And Dan, you may not be able to benefit from it, but you'll establish something that everybody behind you will benefit from. Other things we're doing in the community and to push the city and the town and the state forward. The Campus Town Revitalization Project. This is a project that got pushed along for many, many years, and it seemed like every time it got to the top of the hill, it rolled back down over Iowa State. Well, this time we're getting it, I think, to the top of the hill. And many of you have seen the commercial development. If you start right across the street from where Janet and I live, you see a brand new fraternity house, a big new residence hall going up, private student housing, and you see all this all the way down to Welch, anchored at the corner of Welch and Lincoln Way by the Kingland Building. And that's soon to be home to several university units, institutional research, the Office of Responsible Research and Research Integrity, the Foundation Call Center, the Iowa State Daily, and University Relations. And they all get to move into those facilities late this fall or early winter. And I want to relate that to something else, two other things. One, big things are also happening at the Iowa State Research Park, and the benefits are twofold there also. We're expanding our capacity with the construction of the Economic Development Core Facility, which will be Mike Crum and his team's new home. It will house all of our economic development assistance units by this time next year. I mentioned this in the past as something we wanted to do or we're starting to do. Now if you drive out there, we're actually doing it. We're also making the park much larger, more robust, and we're creating a lot of jobs, good quality jobs for the Ames community. This is going to be one very vibrant place to work. The core facility, in fact, is only one of 4 buildings currently under construction there, or in the design phase right now. The others include Vermeer's Applied Technology Hub, which is coming out of the ground, Beringer Ingelheim's research building, which is almost complete, our economic development facility, and for those of you that like the cafe, a new restaurant, which will be a sister property of the cafe, will be opening at the research park. And just a note about why this is happening or what's driving this. Vermeer, for example, has decided to expand their footprint at the research park in a big way, primarily to attract more Iowa State students so they get a leg up in recruiting Iowa State students to work for Vermeer full time. That is tremendous for the students. It's just, and we see that more and more often as a driver for these companies coming to the park. We're also going to add recreational facilities, walking trails. We're finalizing terms right now for more amenities, including a fitness center, coffee shop, child care, dry cleaning, and a bank. So we'll see a very vibrant, different research park than you've ever seen before. We're also working with the city. Those of you down University Boulevard may be frustrated with all this talk right now because the road is closed, but soon you'll see a boulevard down there that leads to our new hub. You'll see 3 new roundabouts and much better way to get to the south part of Ames. I also mentioned some other things we've done. You can't miss the striking new look of Jack Trice Stadium. It looked great last weekend. It looked great last evening when I went by it. The Sioux Cup End Zone Club has expanded our capacity to 61,000 plus people. It's the 3rd largest stadium now in the Big 12. It's a great game day experience for those of you that like athletics. And I want to acknowledge Jamie Pollard for his leadership in helping make this happen and convincing me that I ought to approve this huge expenditure of money. But Jamie's been visionary and leading athletics. We have an athletics program on campus we'd be especially proud of, and the way we win, the way our student athletes achieve success in the classroom. And then if you look at the great facilities and the programs we build under Jamie's leadership, he needs to be commended. And as many of you know, Jamie had a difficult year with his heart attack, and it didn't slow him down very long, and you see progress continuing to happen over there. So those of you that can, I encourage you to be there Saturday. I think we can beat the Hawks, but we could use some more cheering. So please consider coming out. And so now with the stadium complete, I'm turning my attention, or I should say Janet and I are turning our attention to Ryman Gardens and actually the integration of the space between the new Jack Trice and Ryman Gardens. We're committed to transforming that area to make a brand new south entrance to Iowa State University and give the visual experience and the actual experience when you're out there of a tremendous university with a beautiful campus. In addition, we'll be making improvements for the students to intramural fields from across the stadium and north of the stadium, adding lights. There'll be some with artificial turf that can be used in all kinds of conditions, and greatly expanding their abilities to have intramural athletics, and not just before it gets dark. These are all projects the university, the community, athletics have talked about and advocated for many, many years. I'm personally very pleased to be able to see these things becoming reality for the Iowa State community and the entire Ames community. I know on football people have told me this is something they've waited for 20 years. So it's time these things happened. Some of the renovations in Campus Town, I'd go so far as to say might have been 20 years overdue. So I'm really glad to see these things happening. But what's really going to make a huge difference in many people's lives who are on this campus every day is that when we move folks to Campus Town and we move folks to the Economic Development Core facility, we're going to be able to revitalize key areas in Central Campus for our students and our faculty. In fact, we're going to gain nearly 70,000 additional square feet, the equivalent of another large building in Central Campus that we get without having to build anyone on our Central Campus by freeing up campus space that's previously been occupied by these units. For example, the former TV studio in the communications building is being repurposed for studio space for the School of Design. So I'm really excited about getting this space back and repurposing it. Luis is nodding yes. He's probably more excited than I am. We're also planning to bring 185,000 square feet of space online for the new biosciences facilities. This includes a 4-story addition to Bessie Hall, my tenure home, but that's coincidence, I want to assure everybody, because I've already been teased about that. John Wickert was in charge of this. But we're also going to build a new building, advanced teaching and research facility at Stang and Pamel. We've secured $40 million from the state. I think it's $50 million. But anyways, and we have to raise another $30 million in private support, which we're working on. We just got a commitment this last week towards that, so we're excited that the donations are starting to come in. But this is, again, great new space. And then the other big project I would like to mention, and I just touched on it earlier, we are building, it's no more we're going to, it's actually we are building a 780-bed residence hall set for completion in 2017. Janet and I want to personally keep an eye on 780 more students, so we're building it right across the street from the house, make sled riding for them easy, and then we'll also actually be opening the Friday Windows Dining Center by next fall also. So another way to accommodate the great student numbers here will be bringing another student dining center online. For those who've been here longer than me, this has been mothballed for a number of years. Tom's team has come up with some really neat concepts to revitalize it and make it exciting. But we're not just adding more space, we're also trying to do what I think is so important when you're at a university. And that is to remember your history, embrace your history, save the good parts of it, but don't let it constrain you from doing new things. So you've heard of the many new things we're doing, like the research part. But we're not doing away with the great iconic things on this campus, like Marston Hall. So it's getting a 21st century makeover inside. It'll continue to be the home of our engineering programs, and it'll be a beautiful building when it's finished. We recently finished a number of upgrades and renovations to Legro Marcino for our School of Education. The hub, those who've been there, has a beautiful new patio, expanded outdoor seating, still has a free speech area, and has more facilities for the more students we have. We're also making improvements to Osborne Drive. These were a direct result of Warren Madden and his team listening what the students wanted. It's one of the main east-west arteries through campus. It features wider sidewalks. The students, when they first told me we need wider sidewalks, I kind of scratched my head. but Warren, who'd been here a lot longer than me, didn't. He made them wider. So we've been responding on a number of these projects. We're also doing some pilot projects for those of you that have not noticed or are wondering what's going on. We're no longer parking cars on Osborne during the daytime. The students can park there in the evening. We're trying to ease some congestion on campus, make it a more pedestrian-friendly campus. So if you have ideas or feedback on this, please let Warren's team or me know. We've also launched 2 initiatives centered on classroom technology and learning. This is a huge priority for our campus because of our growth. So we've begun the process of upgrading all 214 general university classrooms on campus over the next decade. So that's approximately 20 a year. Provost Wickard has come up with some ideas that we could speed that process up. And I can assure you, as we can speed that process up, whether it's this year, next year, or 2 years from now, we'll speed it up as fast as we can. In an effort to adapt to the changing ways our students want to learn right now, we're transforming not only our classrooms, but a number of our courses, from introductory courses to graduate level courses to a flipped format. This blends our online instruction and content with more personalized classroom learning. Our facilities will be ready for this, and many of our faculty and many of our students are moving to this different type of faculty-student interaction. I also want to mention, too, that people often ask about MOOCs and what is our role in MOOCs, and traditionally we have not been engaged in this area, but when we stepped in, and we stepped into the deep water and went in all the way. So we've launched our first ever MOOC, or massive open online course, and it's on, as you might guess, the Iowa caucuses. This is a no-credit free course, and it's led by University professor Stefan Schmidt, and it has had huge interest. It already has over 1,100 people signed up, from students to journalists to political enthusiasts, political consultants, and it's going to give people an in-depth look at the nation's first caucuses. And what's great for a university like ours, it puts Iowa State, again, at the forefront of many people nationally, internationally, as they take this course. With the Iowa caucus about 5 months away, as many of you know, the presidential candidates, and there are lots of them, are barnstorming the state. And many have made appearances here on campus. Generally, I'll point out, I do not go to campaign events on this campus. Some people ask me about those things. But in addition to the rallies, what we want to make clear to everyone tonight is we have a new program that's really designed to engage students, faculty, staff, and the public in a more formal, intellectual way, in a lecture format. And so we have a new presidential caucus series where the students are engaged and they're inviting the presidential candidates to come to the campus, speak in the evening, and talk on their policy and policy issues. We hope that'll be a good way for people to see the candidates in a constructive setting fitting of a higher education institution. It's also important for you to know, you will see me with candidates from time to time on campus. I do not endorse candidates. But any candidate who wants to talk about higher education policy with me, I quickly embrace those opportunities. I was fortunate to do that with Mitt Romney and Barack Obama in the last election, and I figured one of those two would probably be president. And it was great because Iowa State got put on some committees and got invitations to the White House on educational policy that we've never had in the past. So when you see me with candidates, rest assured, it's not politics, it's educational policy that we'll be talking about. And we're excited because this is great for our students. It's great for the community, the townsfolk, but it's really great for our students to be able to meet people in this society running for president of this country one-on-one and get a chance to talk to them. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about one other priority before I close for questions. And it's about having a very welcoming, inclusive, and safe campus. I truly believe to fully meet the needs of our community, people have to feel welcome on this campus, they have to feel safe, and they have to feel like they feel included, that they have a real home here. I'm pleased to say in this regard a lot of good things happening. Ames was ranked the healthiest metro area in the United States recently. even with recognition like that, there's always some room for improvement. So I'm going to talk about some of the good things here. I'm going to talk about some of the priority things I think we need to address this year. As healthy as we are, we've had some issues with our Teal Student Health Center. There's been a history of problems plaguing the health center. Unfortunately, we got in the news over that issue. But to be honest with you folks, and to bring everybody up to speed, over the past year, we have really worked hard and taken a number of significant steps to overhaul the health center, make improvements to ensure our students are receiving the highest quality care and support. And we actually recognize this ourselves, commissioned Keeling and Associates, one of the best healthcare consulting organizations in the country, to come in, assess our health center, and make recommendations on how we can improve it. We have worked aggressively for a year now to look at their 15 major recommendations and decide how we can improve the healthcare center for our students' needs. We've hired an interim director, we've hired a quality improvement officer, we've now have certified medical assistants who are serving as the first point of contact at the reception desk. We've provided new training for all our nurses and physicians, how to better communicate with patients. We're adding psychologists to our mental health center. We've expanded hours. I am confident that this semester our students will see substantial improvements in service and in care. We have got some other ideas in sight, some from the Keeling Plan, some from our colleagues at the University of Iowa's health programs, and some from Tom Hill and Martino Harmon, who have been taking the lead on this. We're going to give our students first-rate quality health care here, and I want you to know that. This has been a project we've really focused on the last year, and we made tremendous progress in this area. With respect to students' health and safety, we're also ramping efforts to address sexual assault on campus. You'll be hearing a lot more about this through this year as we attempt to better educate students, faculty, and staff about sexual assault and related crimes. And we want to make sure everybody knows about resources, personnel, and support available for victims on this campus. Later this month, we're going to publicly release the survey results from the Sexual Assault Campus Climate Survey. I don't believe in keeping these hidden, so we will release them as soon as they come out from the AAU program. This was a survey conducted last spring. What we really want to do here is use the results to re-examine our current practices. What are we doing well? What do we need to change? If we need to develop some new policies to better promote our culture of zero tolerance and improve our support for victims and survivors, then that's what we're going to do. The Student Health Center, our police force, our Title IX office, many offices will have a role in this, but we will pull together and make this an even better, safer, more welcoming place. As we think about this, we still have a couple big challenges. When new permanent health center director will be one of our most important hires this year. We're also going to hire a new dining director, which, believe it or not, when you first think about it, he's talking about student well-being. Actually, that is one of the most critical positions here. We have a great dining program on this campus with many healthy food options. That'll be another critical hire. But really, to move forward in many of these areas I've talked about to make this a welcoming campus, inclusive campus, we are needing to get our Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer hired. Pamela Anthony's done a stellar job with this process. She's already got one candidate to campus. I'm meeting a second one tomorrow. So this process is nearing completion. I'm really excited. I'm moving forward with these 4 finalists and anticipate a decision as early as this month. A couple other things. Operational priorities. I continue to abide by my leadership philosophy. You've all heard it. You'll hear it one more time right now. The way to move an organization forward is to be constantly improving its level of talent. John's done a great job with the faculty hires. The deans and chairs have done a great job. We've added a lot of great talent this year. But you also move an organization forward by identifying ways to operate more efficiently and, frankly, better. And I think it's time to do some of that now. While we're nationally recognized as one of the most efficiently run universities in the country, I have established 3 key organizational priorities for this year. First, I'm scrutinizing the budget model. As many of you know, when I came here, we made about 80 tweaks to the budget model and got it to run a little bit better. And it is a good budget model. It's better than most universities have. But I'm now at the point where it's not good enough, and we're not going to tweak it this time. As effective as it is, I think it has some unintended consequences on this campus, and we need to make some changes. So I've charged my chief of staff, Miles Lackey. Most of you know him. Those that don't know that when he gets into a project, he gets into it all the way. And I've asked him to closely examine many of the direct and allocated costs that come out of this budget model to ensure that we're aligning incentives between service units and the colleges. Bottom line, I think the costs that many of you are being charged are too high. Some of them are way too high for internal services. So the idea is to lower those costs, perhaps some of them substantially, and when we lower those costs, we'll return those funds, or you won't be charged those funds, so that the colleges, in other words, the academic units and the student services units, will have more money to put towards those programs that they feel are important. I think that's where the money needs to go, by and large, is to the academic units and the student services units. So we're going to work hard on this year. There'll be people involved, but it's a huge project. It's probably the biggest management priority I've taken on here, and it needs to happen. Last thing, too, I'm going to take a more targeted approach to address the needs of our growing university. We made great progress in implementing a lot of positive changes on campus, largely as a result of thoughtful recommendations that came out of the President's Committee on Enhancing Institutional Excellence and the Student Experience Enhancement Council. I like to think when you get a lot of smart people at the table, you come up with a lot of good ideas and you don't make many mistakes. And we proved that with these two groups. The formal work of those committees is over now. As you heard mentioned before, Tom Hill is going to take the lead in thinking, what do we need to do next to ensure that high quality student experience? I'm asking Rob Wallace and the Faculty Senate to assist me in identifying ways to address the other part of that. How do we make this great institution greater? How do we move forward in institutional excellence? How do we do things like continue to expand capacity, lower student-to-faculty ratio, secure more competitive funding? What are the things the administration needs to do to make the faculty lives easier and make our faculty more accessible? Those ideas can't all come from Beardshire Hall. Frankly, a lot of them won't come from Beardshire Hall. So this will be a project that we'll do in conjunction with the Faculty Senate, and I'm really looking forward to getting those ideas so that we can implement them. And then lastly, there'll be a new strategic plan. If you're wondering about other ideas, they will come. You'll hear them next year. We delayed our strategic plan on purpose, and the reason we did that is our strategic plan has never been coordinated and closely aligned with the Region's strategic plan, and it's never been done simultaneously with the Foundation's strategic plan. And I thought to myself, we need to be in line with the Regents because we report on in our response to their items every year. And you wonder, how can our foundation be raising money in close alignment with us if their strategic plan isn't really closely aligned with ours? So for the first time ever, the Board of Regents strategic plan, our strategic plan, and the Iowa State Foundation strategic plan will be developed at the same time, and perhaps more importantly, with one person knowing what's going on with all of them. And I've asked a faculty member to do that, Steve Freeman, who many of you know. Steve is a workhorse. It seems like whatever job you give him, he says thank you. And I really need to be thanking Steve because he really does a tremendous job for us here. So Steve will be overseeing our strategic plan. Of course, most of the effort in that will come out of the provost's office through the faculty, but Steve will coordinate across our three major areas, and he'll also be a point person with the foundation and the regents. So appreciate what you're doing on that, Steve. Now, before I open to questions, I want to say that I really do think this is an outstanding place. I am thrilled to be here. It's got a great faculty, great staff, a tremendous student body. I'm walking to work a lot in this great weather. It's fun to walk with these students and see what they're thinking, hear their dreams, their aspirations, where they're going, and you truly believe they will be great citizens and they'll change the world when they leave here. They're engaged, they're motivated. Some of them look a little confused when an older guy walks up next to them and wants to walk with him, but they quickly adjust. I want to also say that our alumni who were those students once are just as forward-thinking, just as passionate, just as caring about this university as the new generation coming forward. So when you couple that with the faculty and staff, I have no doubt that we can achieve great things here. So I want everyone to have a great year. This is a great place. Go Cyclones, and I'll be glad to entertain any questions you might have. Now, it's my understanding from Dan, and I take orders from a lot of people. Tonight I'm taking them from Dan. They're supposed to go to the microphones. All right, so we'd like you to go to the microphones just so your colleagues can hear the question. Are there any questions for me? Might have got off easy. This is the most fun part for me. I might have to call on someone. All right.
President Leath, you discussed the Board of Regents vote to increase tuition here at Iowa State and UNI, but can you talk a little bit more about that, specifically how much money that's going to generate and how that'll be used here at the university?
Sure. Anyone in my position is always reluctant to raise tuition, especially on resident students whose families are paying taxes in this state. But Hillary before Dan and now Dan assured me that the students would be comfortable and actually in favor of a tuition increase for a couple of reasons. One, modest tuition increases that they can plan for, they told me, are far better than letting us get in a desperate situation and giving them one large increase with no warning. So $100 a student was something everybody thought we could bear. The students also told us, though, that to be in favor of a tuition increase, they really wanted to go to addressing things that were related to the tremendous student growth on campus. So when we went forward with the request, we promised that we would use the monies directly related to student growth. So this could be to hire more advisors. It could be to renovate a critical size classroom that we're short on. It could be to hire some faculty in key areas where we don't have enough instructors. So anything that comes out of this will be related to that. Now, if you put this in perspective, $100 a student comes out to about $2.5 million more a year, in perpetuity. So with $2.5 million, it's not a huge part of our budget, but it does allow us to address some immediate concerns related to growth. Any other questions?
President Leath,
Yes.
Great speech tonight.
Oh, thank you.
Glad to hear a lot of things that are happening at Iowa State. One specific question I have, and I think we as students would be remiss not to bring it up, is the continued sentiment towards a lack of a combining Spirit Festival with the absence of VISHA. Are there any initiatives, are there any thoughts that you have towards a restructuring of that festival and showcasing the great students and talents and clubs at Iowa State?
Yes, I can address that. That's a good question. And we've probably been a little remiss in our communications, but not remiss in addressing it. So last spring, I asked Kevin Shalinski, President of the Faculty Senate, about this issue, and I asked Hillary and Dan during the transition about this issue, and said we need to think carefully, we need to be thoughtful about what we can do to showcase this university, give students some of the opportunities they really want here, without risking, the sixth set of disturbances or having another major student injury or death. As a testament to those individuals, Kevin personally wanted to represent the faculty on that, even though he was busy as faculty senate president. Dan, as the incoming president, and Megan, as the incoming vice president, wanted to personally serve on that committee. So we have a small 6-member committee made up of 3 faculty and 3 students who are actually going through this process of how do we get this right. Now, when I checked, I don't know where Rob's sitting. I hate to put him or Dan on the spot right now, but it's my understanding by the end of this month they'll have their first kind of round of suggestions and recommendations. Is that, Dan's shaking his head yes. So that's where we're at. So the truth of the matter is, though, and this is my responsibility, my deal, I was not in a hurry. I felt we need a little bit of downtime between what happened last time and before we started again. Greg suspended Visha for 1 year, and then I got the same problem he got, and he got the same problem Martin Jiski got, and so forth and so on. So I wasn't in a hurry to bring anything back, and I'm certainly not in favor of putting a bunch of events in the same week or same weekend in April. So the group is trying to be really thoughtful about how we can get this right and have fun and do things that the students are thrilled about and remove the risk. So you should hear more in the next few weeks. So thank you very much for the question. Anything else? All right, everybody's eyeing the desserts, I'm thinking. All right, with that, if there aren't any other questions, I appreciate everybody being here tonight. Approach me anytime. I volunteer my senior staff the same way. We're constantly looking for ideas and inputs from students, faculty, and staff. So when you have them, catch us anywhere you can and tell us what you're thinking. Thanks again, folks.